Welcome back to Timo's Dinky Detailing. Today I'm going to restore a Dinky 162 Ford Zephyr. This is the second Ford Zephyr I've done. If you've been following, there's another one you can see. This one is in equally poor condition. It was well played with. It's got other stuff painted on it. In this case, you can actually read it. It says, "Little English Cup of Tea." So this is a Canadian child, and I thought that was funny. And I have a feeling this kid was playing with these and was watching demolition derbies on TV, because that's what they look like. Anyway, this one, you can see it's a bit rough, but I think the casting might be okay. So we'll take the bottom off, and then we'll strip the paint. So I'm starting, and this time I'm doing it by hand, which means that there's probably somebody in the house who's sleeping, or somebody I don't want to disturb. I don't remember. And I'm using this is a smaller drill, but it's a center pointed drill, and it's about the right size, and it's working okay for me. And we'll just pry the base off with a screwdriver. So the base looks a little bit rough. It's got some rust on it, but it'll be fine. They always are. And the casting looks generally in pretty good condition, so it's going into the milling machine. And I put some soft spongy material around it, so I don't know why. Maybe it'd be better just to put it with the steel, but I think that kind of gives it a little bit of friction, so it's less likely to move around. So I line up and do my center drilling, and then in the same position I can top drill, and I always go with lubricant because it's very easy to break off a drill or a tap, because this metal is chewy. Now here's a new tool I'm using. You see that spring action? I had to modify this tool because it didn't have this feature, but it has a little cup, and on the end of the tap is a point. So I put the cup into the point, and because it's on a spring, as I turn it in, the tap goes in, and the spring takes up the slack. And so that keeps the tap perfectly aligned to the spindle of the mill and where the drill hole was drilled. So this is a great tool. I'm really pleased that I got it. I had to modify it because they're supposed to come with that cup on the one end, and you can reverse it so there's a point on the other. This one came just with the point, and I deliberately ordered it because I knew I could put it in the lathe and put a cup into it. So there you go, there's spring, and you can see as I tap it, the guide comes down and it keeps it straight. I didn't clean that shaft up enough. I'll have to do that later, and in a future episode you'll see it being more clean. So now I got my holes tapped perfectly straight, and I put my 440 button head cap screws in there, and that'll protect the holes when it's being painted and the paint's being stripped. So the remaining tires, like usual, they're totally dried up, and there's no chance of rescuing those. So I just break them off, and then I go with my file. The one end of the file has been ground off. This is a quality file. It's a Nicholson file, and I've ground the teeth off of one edge, so I'm not filing into the wheel. And so for me, I find this is the fastest and easiest way, and it's the quietest way, so I don't disturb other people in the house, rather than coming out with a Dremel tool and trying to grind that off. So the base is good. It's going to have to be stripped. Those go in the garbage. And Evapo-Rust is super safe stuff. I don't get any money from them. If they want to give me money, I'd be happy to, and I always show this stuff. It's very safe rust remover, but it takes time, so usually I put it in and leave it overnight. Now for the windshield, I'm going to try something different. I want to use a vacuum forming plastic machine that dentists use, but I need a form to wrap around, so I'm going to try this. This is modeling putty that you model and then you put it in the oven. and I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, pushing it in there, it looks terrible, it's not going to work. You would put this in the oven and harden it before I would wrap the plastic around it, but it's no good. So meanwhile, I'm going to be doing an interior. So in the computer using Tinkercad, I'm copying the front seat to move it over to the other side. I modeled the whole thing in this on a previous episode, and I'm using the same seats and just squishing and moving them around. Same with the whole opening for the seats. Then I save it as an STL file, and as an STL file it has all the 3D information. Now I move over to my other screen and open up Windows 7 on my Macintosh and open Box, and it opens the STL file, and now I tilt it, and because you need to print these things, there's a whole art to this, and this is actually, I've already figured out a better way of printing these, but you tilt it so that it gives you a better finish, and there's a way of getting fewer of those little supports for using my 3D printer. So I put the files onto a thumb drive. It goes into my Mars 2 printer that I bought on Kijiji. And I've already set this up. You have to set it up, initialize it so that it's zeroed to the plate. But I already did that. So now here I go in and I select, there's my Zephyr seats, and then press play, and that causes the plate to come down. So this is speeded up because the whole thing goes in slow motion. So it goes up and down, and now you can see the screen shows you there's a screen underneath the plate on the printer, and when it turns on, it's a computer screen, but it's black and white, but it puts out UV light, and each layer is printed for a few seconds. So here the thing is done, and I've got a vat full of isopropyl alcohol for cleaning off the excess, and then I've got a little thing that holds it into the vat that I printed and designed myself, and I go in and with the toothbrush I clean off the stuff that's off the top of the plate, the print plate, and then I try and shake it. It's been in there for a while, and it dissolves most of the excess resin, and then it goes into my paint booth because that stuff stinks, and the isopropyl alcohol does too, and I break off all those little supports, and now the thing's ready. It goes into this is a hardener. It's puts UV light, and then it has a little turntable and it spins it, and when it's done it's all hardened. So now we see if it fits into the casting, and lo and behold it does. So I did a good job of measuring that and getting it right, and it's actually a copy of one that was done for an earlier toy, but I just adjusted the dimensions by pushing and pulling in the Tinkercad until it was right. And then I've got a steering wheel that I printed earlier, and that's going to go into the interior. So here's the base that's been overnight in the Vaporust, and it's taken off. You can see it's all black, but it's taken off all of the finish, and the finish, I'm told, is it's blued like you would gun bluing, and it turns out that the Evaporust takes off the gun bluing. So here's the paint. I've gone into the backyard. See, this was done a while ago. There was still snow, and I'm on the deck outside the back door, and in goes the boiling water and the caustic soda, and I speeded through that. You don't need to see it bubbling, but it took off all the paint, and then I take it to the wire brush on the drill press. So now it's all shiny, and I'm trying again with the windshield. So my other method is to try to 3D print. So I'm 3D printing the windshield, and this is my first attempt at a transparent windshield. It's the wrong size, so I'm filing it to shape. It looks terrible. Look at all these different versions I've tried already. So this one kind of fits in, but it looks like hell. I mean, I could finish it off and cover it with some clear coat and it might look okay, but I'm still struggling with it. So here I got the casting ready. There's a big divot on the hood that I think is from the original casting. It's not from play. It was filled with paint. And I fixed all the little defects. It wasn't too much on this one. It was still in pretty good shape. And into the spray booth for some primer. And I'm using, as usual, the Tamiya Fine Surface Primer in white. I do 99% of my stuff with the white primer because the gray primer is only good for darker colors. So if I have a darker color, then I'll use the gray primer. And here I'm putting satin black paint from a spray can onto the base, and primer goes onto the hubs. So here's another attempt at the windshield. This is with the clear resin, but it has to put these supports, and it put a bunch of supports on the windshield. The thing doesn't really fit very well. It's really hard to model this thing, especially since the roof of the car is curved, and Tinkercad is not good with that stuff. It's very basic sort of drafting program. So I've got one that this is a, well, there's a second one, and well, here's a third one. That one was a different design. I keep modifying it, and this is the one that was done first in the clear. And with the clear, I was a bit of trouble, so I had trouble getting it to print anything. And finally I got this one, which actually looks pretty good, and then I did the rear window separately, because then I don't get the supports interfering. So none of them worked, including this one, but I have another idea. I want to use the vacuum forming, and so I bought this stuff. I didn't buy the vacuum forming machine, but I bought the stuff that goes into it. So they're 5x5 plastic sheets. So get one out. Problem is, I realized that I chose these. This is the soft stuff. It's for splints. It's not for, it doesn't make a hard surface. I thought, okay, I'm going to try it anyway. So the back window was wrong, and so I just glued my little back window on there and sanded it down, and I stuck this thing on the end of a piece of wood and get a candle, and I'm going to try this just as an experiment. So I heat up the plastic and then stretch it around my form, and we'll see what the thing looks like. Now it's hot and I don't want to hold it there for too long, so I use my canned wind, and if you turn it upside down, stuff comes out cold. So it quickly sets it. I cut it off with a knife, and then let's see what the thing looks like in the car. It looks like crap. Maybe it would look better if I had done it with the vacuum machine, but it's useless. So I'm probably not going to buy one of those vacuum machines, because the problem is I need a form. If I had a windshield and I was reproducing it, that would be great, but I don't have a windshield. There was never a windshield for this. So I've sanded the primer down, I put another coat, and it's ready for the first coat of paint. So here I'm mixing up Mr. Hobby paints. So it's going to be two-tone. So this is going to be a light blue. I'm not going to show you all of the mixing because it's just too boring. And I put in this leveling thinner. This is the stuff that when you spray it on with the leveling thinner, it stays, the paint stays soft longer, so it has time to smooth out and level. So even though it might look a little bit like it's not shiny when you spray it on, then you leave it for 10 minutes and it becomes shiny. It's a miracle stuff. And that's what I use now on all of these things when I'm mixing my own paints. So here the light blue goes on, and go to the end of the sequence. And I'm going in and I'm making sure that it looks as shiny as possible without putting so much paint that it runs. And it's quite a challenge to do, and that's what airbrushing is all about. So here I'm doing the hubs, and I'm using this block, and it's got so many layers of paint that I go and blow some paint onto it, and it chips off some of the old paint. I'll probably have to do something, sand this thing down or something. So here's the other, I did the inside of the base, and there I did the outside. And now I always go in and I polish up my paint, because there's always high points, and if you want to have a nice finish, you have to sand it. And that's what they do with real cars. They sand the whole thing until it's smooth, and then they put the next coat of paint. In this case, I'm not putting a next coat of paint. I'm taping it. The light blue finish is sanded, but doesn't matter because it's going to get clear coat at the end. But I'm not going to put the clear coat until I've painted my second color. So this is a good time to remember to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of these videos, and also to to give it a thumbs up. It doesn't cost anything. You can do it right now. It's the little thumb that points upward. And don't forget to share it as well with your friends. So getting this tape, this is that Nito tape. It's a Japanese tape, and apparently people don't like the Tamiya. They have a stretchy tape as well, but it's apparently not as good as this one. I'm really happy with this one because I'm able to get it to work everywhere. And so here I've got a piece of paper, and I've put the ordinary masking tape, a Tamiya masking tape, on the edge. I don't want to tape up all the paint, just the edges where I already put that stuff. And actually, when I put that on, by the way, I put the sticky part on my fingers first. I reduce the stickiness so it's less likely to pull the paint off of the model. And that's worked for me all along now since I started doing that. So now I'm mixing up a little bit darker paint. So I start with it's a bright blue paint, and I add some white, and I'll have to add some more. I don't want it quite that dark. And you can see I'm mixing it up in an old jar that was actually had white in it before, and you can still see white around the rim. And here I'm thinning it using Mr. Hobby leveling thinner, again to make sure that it's shiny. So into the airbrush, and to the spray booth. So I'll jump ahead to when I'm just finishing it up. And I get it to the point where it's shiny but doesn't run. That's what everybody tells you, but it's true, you have to do it that way, and it's a lot easier with an airbrush to achieve that. So here we're peeling it off. That's the problem with putting the paper on. It's a bit of a challenge to take it off again without damaging the paint. And there I'm tearing it all apart. Here I got the tape on it. And finally that part is off. And I'm down to the white plastic tape. That's the flexible tape. Lets you go around corners a little bit. But I find it gives you a really good edge even if I unsticky the tape with my fingers before putting it on. It still keeps a nice clean edge. This is a pattern and color scheme from the original Dinky toy. The only thing is I have it wrap around that front grille. You might have noticed. Because the real car, it wraps around the front grille. Dinky didn't do that because it's just be way too much trouble in the factory to have to tape around the grille like that. So I'd put some tape around the wheel wells so that the inside would look a little cleaner just with the light blue. but the wheel wells would have the darker blue paint on it. So I'm going in with my sandpaper because I need to take off a little paint that oversprayed, because it's hard to tape around these. There's these features on the car that are chrome, and so it's hard to tape around them, and so this paint got underneath the edge, and instead of trying to take it off some other way, I just used a little bit of sandpaper. So here's my dot painter. This is for painting dots on when you're varnishing ladies' nails, and it's brilliant because it lets you put a nice controlled daub of paint where you want it. And it's perfect for doing tail lights, indicator lights. So here I'm doing a license plate or a number plate, but I'm using a clear number plate, so I need to have a white background. So I'm just putting a piece of plain waterslide white backed decal there, and when it dries I put my clear black with white letters decal over top of it, and those letters otherwise are transparent, so they're going to show whatever color is behind it, so I need to have that white behind it. Getting a little bit better at doing these things, and here I'm using a piece of tissue to dry the decal, because when you use a cotton bud or Q-tip to dry it off, then it tends to move the decal. So there I painted a coat of clear coat, and now we're going to paint these seats. So there's my steering wheel. I'm going to have to paint that as well. This one I printed a long time ago. It's with the green stuff. I wouldn't advise using the plant-based green. It stinks so bad. I'll never use it again, and I've thrown out the rest of it because it makes the whole house stink, even though I'm using it in my spray booth. So here I'm putting, this is from the spray can, the black satin paint. I paint the base with that as well. And here's the seats, and I'm painting the bottom of the seats. I always paint it black because it's visible through the wheel wells. So here's my recreational white, which is propane can paint, and that's what my interior color is going to be. So now doing the detail on the headlights, this is something I like to do because it's very hard to paint a perfect circle on these things, at least for me. But I like to have a silver rim around my headlights, and so I've punched a hole in the tape, and then I get it on there as best I can, and then I go in with the Molotov chrome ink from these chrome markers. Put it a little bit on the bottom of a shot glass, and then go in with a fine brush. Now after it's had a chance to dry, I can peel those off and then do my front grille with the same chrome paint. This has a detailed grille. It wraps around, and it's kind of cool, and it really looks cool when it's finished because I did the other one and I just love it. It just looks great. Now I'm putting a little bit of blue. I didn't quite spray it well enough, so that part underneath the bumper was not dark enough. So I've touched that up as well as part of the detailing, and then do my chrome bumpers. Now here's that little decoration on the front fenders, so I make those chrome as well. This is in the 50s. Everything was decorated with chrome, and I think it's fantastic because now everything is just plastic. But these cars, they stand out today if you see these things restored because of all the chrome on them. They just look beautiful. So again, the clear decal would show the background color, so you have to put white behind it if you want to have white letters. Or even if you wanted to have like very light color, like yellow or something, you need to have the white background. So here, see, I'm trying to do it with the Q-tip, but it wants to move the thing. So I've painted the interior, and for the stick shift, this time I'm putting a russet knob on the gear shift. And here's my black painted steering wheel. That goes in there. And it looks good. So the decal has, the blank decal is dried. So now I can put the number plate on top of it. And again, those letters are transparent. And they would show whatever colors behind it, so you need to have white behind it if you want to have white letters. You can see it a little bit there that it's transparent. So I'm using the paintbrush that's soaked in water. It's kind of handy for moving it around and putting water on there before I put the decal on. And then I don't want the thing to move once I get it in place, so I dab off the water with a tissue. The tissue doesn't move the number plate around. And here I'm putting white where the actual glass part of the headlight, and just leaving the chrome ring around it, which I find looks terrific. And this thing has a badge on it, and I looked at the original badge. It's got a red field at the bottom. There's a black field right near the bottom, and then there's a yellow lion on the badge. So I'm going in with my finest brush, nail painting brush, and there you can clearly see a lion. So there's the back, and we do the chrome on the bumper. Fair amount of detail on this model, and then there's a filler cap at the back, and it's pretty easy to get the door handles done because they're quite pronounced, so it's easy to keep the paint off of the rest of the bodywork. So I'm pretty happy with that. This one, I touch it up a little bit better than I did the first time. Again, I'm using, this is a paintbrush for varnishing ladies' nails, and I got these off of Amazon, and they're terrific because look how short the bristles are on this brush, and there's this massive piece of metal that's holding it in place. It gives you a lot of control. The bristles don't tend to go where you don't want them to go when they're this short. So there's my windshield. Looks like crap, so that didn't work out for me. So I'm going to go with my old style of doing a windshield, which is to use a piece of plastic from wrapping, box wrapping. What do you call it? It's when it's from these soap box, and then it has a plastic all the way around it so you can see the soap inside the box. My wife buys those at Costco, and so I have that plastic, and it's perfect for doing these windshields. So first I make a paper pattern, and in this case I used one of these 3D printed windshields that's close to the right size, so it's a little bit more convenient when I'm cutting this out. So I use that, so at least I got some value out of those prints that I made so many of. And then I go with this clear plastic. And I've learned to cut much further into the roof. It looks like a Maltese cross, because then it conforms better. The roof is curved, so the plastic needs to conform to the curve. And if you have it too close, it just wants to be square, and that can't fit the square onto a curve. And I actually save this paper because if I'm ever doing a Zephyr in the future, the glass came out really good on this, and so I want to have the pattern so I don't have to make a new one. So it goes in with some 5-minute epoxy. This is terrific epoxy I get from the dollar store. and I'll put it onto the ceiling, I guess, of the car, and put in the plastic, and you can see those cracks that I cut in there, they come right together. That's the advantage of cutting way in there. So I put some little a parallel and a little block and a bigger block on top, so I've got some pressure. So for 5 minutes the epoxy has a chance to cure. And there, looks beautiful. So I'm going to keep doing this, and I won't be buying that vacuum press as much as I want to buy a new toy. This is not going to work for me. So here I'm preparing the axles, and I use just a center drill, and I go into the end of the axle. I've got a special clamping system there that holds the axle shaft, and then I loosen it up, it pops out. Got to move the tailstock, and then I can take out, I have to take out that little mini collet that goes inside the big collet, and there you can see it's kind of dished. And after doing that, I go to the grinder where I have a buffing wheel, and I go in and I buff these axles so they're all nice and shiny. Buff the head. And it makes it look more like a new toy when the axles are nice and polished like this. So here's my hubs that have been painted, and my usual O-rings that are exact size of these Dinky toy tires. I've used so many of these, it would cost me a fortune buying ones that are molded to that shape, when I found, fortunately, that somebody made an O-ring for some plumbing purpose that's exactly the right size. Then I got my vice grips that are ground with a groove in it so it holds the axle nicely. And I go with the hammer that I made when I was in school. And it takes a bit of tapping, but it's light tapping. I don't want to bend the axle. But with that little divot drilled into the end, it makes it mushroom properly. And it's much easier than when just using the end of a plain shaft. So this is a trick that I find works really, really well. Now, to clean it up a little bit, I've got this this shaft. I put it in the hammer drill. It makes a lot of noise, and it improves it a little bit. I'm not sure it's worth doing. So there we have it, my wheels on the base. Rolls beautifully. So now I put my interior in. The glass is already there. Just line it up properly and get the base on there. And I have my painted 440 button head cap screws that match the lighter color on the body. I think it looks terrific. Looks like a beautiful new toy. So let's remind you where we began. So this is the sad looking toy that I bought and paid way too much for. But that's how it works now. These crappy toys cost just as much as one that's in really good condition. Because to model these, or to restore these, you don't want one that's in good condition. You want one that looks like this. So funny thing is, it has value now. So this looked pretty rough and all that stuff. I think some child enjoyed it, so it has good energy. So let's see what it looks like now. So that's the sort of toy that you'd want to get as a birthday present, and you would just fall in love with this thing. Looks beautiful. It's got the colors that Dinky had originally, or something resembling it, And I've added a few embellishments with the tail lights and license plates and the enhanced chrome. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Timo's Dinky Detailing. I certainly enjoyed doing this toy, and it came out beautifully. Hope to see you next time. Until then, be seeing you.